Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and coming hot off the heels of D23 this past weekend, we've now got an awful lot of new Disney park projects to discuss and dive into over the coming weeks and months ahead. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest. But as is often the case when it comes to these brand new Disney park projects, we're often left with more questions than answers, and that is definitely the case with one particular project from this weekend, and that is the Monsters Inc. land that was officially announced to be coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios, which even just saying that feels kind of surreal, as this has been a long-standing rumour dating back nearly 17 years now that Monsters Inc. might come to Hollywood Studios, and now it's actually happening. So I guess the thing to take away from all of this, the lesson to learn here, is that no good idea ever does truly die within Imagineering. But what this project will be is it's going to bring a land themed to Monsters Inc. So it's going to be themed around the city of Monstropolis that you can see in the Monsters Inc. movie, and the major attraction for this land is going to be a door coaster, which will be a roller coaster that will take us into that scene from the movie where Mike and Sully are on a chase throughout the door warehouse. So that's what they're going to bring to life within the attraction, and to do this, it's going to be using the very first ever suspended roller coaster ride system at any of the Disney parks. So all around, very exciting project to discuss. But there is kind of a cloud hanging over all of this, and that is the unanswered question of where is it going to go at Hollywood Studios? And that's not just a question that the fans are asking right now, but also apparently even Disney are yet to decide exactly where they're going to locate this land at Hollywood Studios. And there's been some internal debate amongst not just the Imagineers but also the executives over the various proposals they've got, and there's two in particular for the locations where this might go. And that's the reason why we received these two different pieces of concept art. One kind of shows the land within supposedly Animation Courtyard, and the other one shows the land replacing Muppets Courtyard. And according to various sources, Disney are going to be making a decision on this fairly soon. And so what I want this to be is a discussion of the two various proposals. Comment down below, let your voice be heard in the comments section about all of this, because I know Disney do listen to what the fans say. I can't guarantee it will influence the decision, but they do still listen to what the online discourse is. And so let's begin with the more controversial one, and that is Muppets Courtyard. And personally, I'm not in favour of this. I've got to say that because my bias might come through in the way I talk about it, but I'm going to try and point out the reasons why Disney's even considering this and the schools of thought behind it. And apparently the first thing is that it is a logistically easier project to carry out, as it's not going to be impacting too much of the backstage infrastructure for the cast members, not interfering with too much of that, and so therefore it is more cost effective to carry out this proposal instead of the other proposal of Animation Courtyard. So that's the reason why Disney's looking at Muppets Courtyard instead of just only looking at Animation Courtyard. It's because from an infrastructure perspective, it doesn't really impact too much of a backstage infrastructure to actually build this brand new project for Monsters Inc. So that's the main pro behind this. It's more cost effective and easier to carry out that project in Muppets Courtyard. And also as part of that, they get to retain Pizza Rizzo as a restaurant. So you've already got a quick service restaurant there that they can retheme to Monsters Inc. in some way. So that's also a part of it. And then the second reason Disney's looking at this is that Muppets doesn't really bring in much in terms of direct revenue to the parks, as it has little to no merchandise sales for Muppets within the land itself. But then again, that's of Disney's own making. You know, the shop that they have within the land is never really open, so doesn't even have much of an opportunity to sell merchandise even if they could. And then also from a multi-pass lightning lane perspective, they've seen supposedly data that shows that it's not really a major pulling factor for the reason why people purchase multi-pass lightning lane, because it's a show, and with it being a show, it happens every 10 minutes either way, and so there's not much of a benefit having lightning lane for Muppets Vision, which is the same thing with Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor and any show that they have at Disney, but you know, that's also being considered there. Then the cons. Now I think there's way more cons to this proposal than pros, but obviously finances and easier logistically are going to play very heavily within the decision-making process here. So those are the two major pros, but the cons, from the way I see it, is that Muppets Vision still does business in terms of getting people into the attraction. It still does good capacity. people still like it, and it's adding additional capacity to the park. So even though people aren't buying a Lightning Lane for it, it is adding vital attraction capacity to Hollywood Studios, and Hollywood Studios does need as much attraction capacity as it possibly could get at the moment. Whereas if we consider the other side of things with Star Wars Launch Bay, that is pretty much a dead space. I personally think that a lot of people kind of walk into Star Wars Launch Bay not really knowing what it is, and kind of regret going in there, because, you know, it served its purpose back in 2015 when it first opened as kind of a promotional tool for Star Wars, but now it doesn't really serve much purpose beyond some meet and greets where they could move those elsewhere. Potentially Galaxy's Edge. Those meet and greets could move somewhere else within Hollywood Studios, and equally people would like to go meet those characters. So having the whole launch bay just sat there empty for pretty much no reason, I think is a pretty terrible use of space within Hollywood Studios. And also, Launch Bay doesn't do anything in terms of Lightning Lane sales either. And so if you look at it from that perspective, it's kind of equal with Muppet Vision, but Muppet Vision can at least draw people and add additional capacity to the park. Then the other thing is that if they're to remove Muppets Courtyard and replace it with Monsters Inc. Land, it would be a fairly small land. It's not much space, it's roughly around 2.5 acres they've got to work with there, which I suppose is enough to have a 60 to 70,000 square feet show building for this roller coaster attraction, but nevertheless, it is still quite a small space, which would make it a mini land where they can't really do much world building. I think when people talk about Monsters Inc. and Monstropolis, they're expecting a lot of world building within the land itself, as people have wanted this for a long time. Then the other thing is positioning this door coaster there. It's right next to the other e-ticket within the park, which is Rise of Resistance, which means that you're pulling an awful lot of the crowds in the early morning rush towards this one corner of the park, which might lead to crowd flow concerns as well. Whereas if you put it over in Animation Courtyard, you draw them in a different direction and kind of split that crowd from an operational standpoint. And also, because it is a suspended roller coaster system, it's going to need a very tall gravity box, as they call it in roller coaster terms, and that might be visible from within Galaxy's Edge. Not certain it will be, but it might be, and if it is, they're going to have to theme that side of the exterior of the building to Galaxy's Edge in some way. So another kind of theming dilemma they've got to think about from that perspective. But then the most important one, I think, which is being overlooked here, is that there's a lot of excitement for this Monsters Inc. land at Hollywood Studios, and by removing a beloved IP like the Muppets in place of having another beloved IP like Monsters Inc. replacing it, I think it makes it a zero-sum game in terms of people were excited for this project, and then they're not quite as excited for something that Disney's spending a lot of money on, and they have to then fight the PR uphill battle of trying to get people hyped for this project once again, when they've just taken out something that people love in Muppet Vision. And so I don't think it would make good sense from a PR perspective there. But then personally, I've also got to say that I'm a big fan of the Muppets. I always have liked the Muppets as not just the movies, but also Muppet Vision. Here's me with my son dressed up as Kermit the Frog, you know, just as proof of how much I like the Muppets. The thing is, it is a franchise which Disney bought many years ago in 2004, and it still has a very dedicated fan base that I think it would be a big mistake to turn their back on that fan base and not represent the Muppets within the Disney parks by removing Muppet Vision. So that's the Muppet Courtyard proposal. Now I'll move on to Animation Courtyard next. And I want to start off actually with the cons to this, as that's how Disney are also looking at it. And it may seem fairly straightforward to demolish Star Wars Launch Bay and just build the new Monsters Inc. coaster there, but in actual fact, if they demolish Star Wars Launch Bay, they're not getting that much space. They're getting around 53,000 square feet of space, and this coaster system will likely need more space on that. So you're then looking at having to remove the office space that is attached to Star Wars Launch Bay as well. And if they have to remove the office space, there's a 4 or 5 story tall office building attached to Star Wars Launch Bay, that then they would have to relocate all those cast members that are in those offices, which then means that Disney has to spend an awful lot more money before they even put the first shovel in the ground on a Monsters Inc. land. They've got to spend money on infrastructure changes and all those kind of things. And so it gets looked upon as a more costly proposal to do it from that perspective. And also, apparently, Animation Courtyard is being earmarked as an expansion space that Disney want to keep open. And personally, the way I see this is, build what you've got right now in terms of the plans. Don't just wait for something that might never come in the future, or it might be 5-10 years till it comes in the future. Don't remove Muppets just so therefore you build a new land and then keep the expansion space empty and vacant for no reason. Just build what you've got right now and then look in the future to other spaces where they can expand. And I know the size and layout of Animation Courtyard is something that's probably a bit of a concern for this project, but you could orientate the Monsters Inc. building kind of on the side, expanding out into the backstage area leading it towards Rock and Roller Coaster over there, and then you've got all the extra space within Animation Courtyard, and you've knocked down Star Wars Launch Bay, and potentially create a loop into Sunset Boulevard as well. But personally, I think Animation Courtyard makes a lot more sense as Monsters Inc., as you could retheme the exterior of the Disney Junior building to a kind of city exterior of Monstropolis, but then also keep the dance show for Disney Junior inside, and they could even have like doors where the different characters come through, and you could probably call it something like Scream and Dance instead of Play and Dance, as after all, we all know that kids love to dance around and make a lot of noise, so you could do that. And then also the Mermaid Show, the brand new show that's about to open later on this year, that could have a 1, 2, 3 year run whilst they're constructing this Monsters Inc. land, and then when the time's right, put a new show into there that's themed around Monsters Inc. and have the musical play that we saw Mike Wazowski and Sully perform in the end credits of Monsters Inc. And that would be a big hit within the land. So therefore you've added a bit of variety. You've got a new stage show, you've got the Disney Junior aspect, and you've got the door coaster all within this land. You haven't got a food component, but you could potentially build a smaller quick service window, a bit like Woody's Lunchbox within the land as well. But personally, if they are to remove Muppets in any way, I think they need to put Muppets somewhere else within Walt Disney World. And apparently there might be plans to put Muppets somewhere else, but it's definitely not greenlit yet. And if they are going to announce Muppets Courtyard is being removed, I think they need to announce it in the same breath that Muppets Vision is going to be going somewhere else. And if it was up to me, I would take away Hall of Presidents and put Muppets in Hall of Presidents, as I know that Disney have been looking at that as an attraction they would like to redo. Putting a very popular IP like the Muppets into Hall of Presidents and having a show that's a bit like Muppets Vision, and it would be a natural extension of that Great Moments in History of the Muppets that they used to perform in Liberty Square but inside Hall of Presidents. My one condition is if they are to do that, they've got to plus it in a big way. They've got to have brand new effects, they've got to have new animatronics, they've got to have a longer show where more comedic gags throughout the show and a grandiose kind of scale to this show. Obviously, from a Muppet fan perspective, Muppets Vision was the final thing that Jim Henson ever directed with the Muppets. So it would be nice to see Muppets Vision stay just from that perspective, or make it available for Muppets fans to purchase that show so therefore everyone can always watch it. But that's the only condition where I would be okay with the Muppets, is if they bring the Muppets somewhere else at Walt Disney World and they announce that at the same time. But anyways, now it's over to you, the Waltineers, as right now is the time to make your voice heard on this topic. Even celebrities such as Josh Gad has weighed in on this. There's a lot of online discourse about all of this at the moment. I'm sure Disney is listening and watching to see what people are saying on this whole thing and seeing how the fan base are reacting, because there's no guarantee they will take that on board, but they will be watching the social media reaction to all of this. And with that being said for today, be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, and also I'd like to give a massive thank you to the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel, and also the official Waltineer Gold members that you can see here on the screen, as well as official Waltineer Diamond members Kyle Mahan, Justin Tupper, and JC Russell. And so until the next time, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.